Good afternoon and welcome to our first TIA event for 2022. My name is Sally Townsend and I'm the chair of the ANZCCJ. And thank you very much for joining us for Down to Earth, creating opportunities in space through tech collaboration and innovation. It's been over 50 years since NASA's Apollo 11 moon landing, and during that time, space exploration has been centered on manned low Earth orbit missions and unmanned scientific exploration. Now, high levels of public funding, advances in technology, and growing public sector interest is making us all look up to the stars. Space has never been more accessible, and the potential opportunities are huge, positioning the space sector as the next trillion-dollar industry. Earth observing satellites have become indispensable, and rocketry advances are opening up the solar system for innovation, exploration, and infrastructure in space to make for a better world down here on Earth. So today we welcome three truly brilliant people who represent this fascinating, diverse, and fast growing industry. They're going to help us understand what greater accessibility to space means for us, how collaboration is enabling further advances into space, and that things that may seem futuristic for many of us are now closer to realization than we may think. So I'll ask our panelists, Rocket Lab's launch director, Dr. Sandy Turty, Associate Director of the South Australian Space Industry Centre, Dr. Catherine Grace, and CEO and founder of Space Entertainment Inc., Kaho Sakakibara, to give a short introduction about themselves and what they do. And then we'll discuss today's theme before opening the floor to our questions for members, because I'm pretty sure that you have many questions for our panelists today. So I believe Dr. Sandy is possibly running a little bit late. So perhaps we'll go to Dr. Catherine Grace first. Would you like to go ahead, Catherine?
Thank you so very much, Sally, and hello to everyone joining us. Before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that I am joining from the traditional lands of the Kaurna people here in the Adelaide Plains, and I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people around the world. Sally was so gracious to introduce me. I'm Dr. Catherine Grace. I'm the Associate Director of the South Australian Space Industry Centre. We are a South Australian government agency that works across industry, academia, and all our agencies to really cultivate South Australia as the centre of gravity for Australia's expanding space activities. We have a focus on capitalising on the new space phenomenon and really contributing to this whole of government national space strategy. And that includes things like launch, many meshed small sats, all the important policy and infrastructure work, and really the entire space ecosystem, including space medicine. We are an economic development agency, so we're really about growth and also about collaboration. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And next we have Kaho. And Kaho, I believe you are not a doctor yet, but I'm sure you will be soon. And Catherine is actually a medical doctor as well. So as when I said we've got some truly brilliant people on the panel, I didn't mince my words there. Go ahead, Kaho.
So thank you, Sari, for the introduction. Hello to everyone who are joining today. My name is Kaho Sakakibara, which is really hard to say. Please call me Kaho. And I'm the CEO of Space Entertainment based in Tokyo. And Space Entertainment is established last year and now have only 3 people, including me. So it's pretty new company among many space-related companies. And I would like to share slides and introduce about my company a bit. So is that okay for you, Sally?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So
thank you.
Slides. Okay, can you see my slides now?
Yep.
Okay, thank Thank you. So just short introduction about space entertainment. Our company's vision is to make space our playground for humanity. As you know, I mean, for your information, last year about 48 people went to space, and actually more than half of them were actually civilians, not only astronauts. So in the really near future, we believe that when you go to space or go to commercial space station, which is now planned to be constructed, people definitely need something fun or something to enjoy in space for space travelers. So that's why we are now being focused on entertainment in space. And our final goal is to provide space theme park on the moon. And we have a milestone with 3 steps: now, soon, and future. And in the future, we build a space theme park on the moon, as I mentioned. And soon, we focus on low Earth orbit, where now International Space Station is located. So we're going to provide entertainment and art people can enjoy in commercial space station or in spaceship. One example, maybe you can easily imagine, is space hotels. And this project will start in 5 years. But now we provide entertainment. We can enjoy space on the ground first, like art satellites, which I will explain later, and space-themed hotels on the ground for the preparation of real space hotels. So this is our first project, which has already started. Is art satellite. We're launching many kinds of art into space, collaborating with global artists, and create art gallery consisted of satellites in space. And we're going to sell this art piece to individuals, companies, and museums who are the buyers of art piece. And this is the graphic image of the first art satellite. This is called Pion. And our first collaboration artist is Yasuo Nomura, who is a conceptual artist, lives in New York. And the last slide, as for the team, me as CEO, and Yasu, who is the Chief Business Officer, has experience in various space business for more than 8 years, including space debris or the space observation satellites. And Masako, who is the Chief Artistic Director, has 20 years experience in art field in New York, and she's leading the art project from New York office. So thank you. That is pretty much the introduction of my company.
Thank you very much, Kaho. And I know for many people watching this, they'll look at what you're doing and think, 5 years' time, you're going to have a hotel somewhere in space. How is that even going to be possible? And I imagine that you get these kind of questions all the time. And I also imagine that you're not the only company who's looking at space as the potential venue for entertainment. Who are your peers here?
The
Who
keys?
are your peers? Who else is doing
Yeah, so
something
basically,
similar?
yeah, we regard all the space company as potential partners because to realize this space entertainment, which is really big project, we need to collaborate with many kinds of partners. But to pick some, one of the most important partners will be technical partners, such as satellite manufacturing companies or like Rocket Lab, who have a launch service, who have rockets, or who have ground station for satellites. And those technical partners will be the most important parts of our collaboration.
Thank you. And Catherine, I know that you know all about this, and probably as a lot of people are thinking now, it's going to be really difficult to get the public on side with what you're doing. I think education here is really important because it just seems so space trek, far out, something that we can't really conceive. So Can you tell us what I know you've studied something really recently about this, and how you think this kind of space entertainment is going to slot into what we do from now on?
Thank you, Sally. And absolutely. And I'll just begin by saying that I think Kaho's vision is definitely on the mark. Space entertainment is really projecting into the future and expanding on not only space tourism. So we know that space tourism as a sector is really growing, but also, now the Earth projects are absolutely relevant. So I'll begin by saying everybody is familiar with the story of what happened in NASA in the 1960s and 70s. There was so much public support, so much funding. We landed humans on the moon, and then public opinion turned. And with that lack of public support, obviously there was lack of public funding, decrease in funding in NASA, and the funds there from government have never been the same. And that goes to show us how critically important having public support is. We know something else about space. Not only does it have the potential to be a triple ROI, so return on investment, innovation, and interest, but it actually really inspires our youth. We talk about things that, bridges the imagination and gets kids into space and into science and STEM and mathematics. And that's definitely space. You can look up and you can see a rocket. But how do we make that translatable to the here and now? We are growing up where everyone's got a phone in their hands. They've got amazing VR goggles, simulation, and there's that perfect opportunity to link space, education, and entertainment. Recent studies that have come out of the International Space University have shown the link between space and STEM education, especially in areas like sub-Saharan Africa. So if you're wanting to get more engineers, more people inspired, more children engaged to build that pipeline, entertainment is the perfect venue. We're actually leaning towards that in South Australia as well. So I'm not sure who's familiar with the Rover Challenge, but basically we're getting university students to build rovers, imagine what it's like on the surface of the moon with real regolith, but instead of having it a closed university project, that's actually going to be a public spectator event. So you can imagine what will happen. It's like robot wars, but robots in space. So everybody's engaged, excited, and that translates across the world. So I'd say it's exactly the same for Kaho. Using entertainment, visual stimuli, visual AR, VR circumstances to get the STEM sector engagement and involvement is definitely a brilliant opportunity. And it's already happening in the medical field and the defense sector. So we train virtually for medics, for doctors to do certain surgeries. It's the same for certain technical digital twinning and simulation in the defense sector. So it's absolutely translatable to space. And I can just imagine everyone on their phone, VR goggles on, building their own lunar hotel. It's absolutely brilliant.
Great, thank you, Catherine. And Kaho, you mentioned before your partners. We can't get anything to space without our rocket launches. So Sandy Turgid, Dr. Sandy, he's with us today, and he is from Rocket Labs, which is initially a New Zealand company. Sandy, I believe you're based in Brisbane. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, I apologize for being late. I'm in transit. I was supposed to make it at home. I did not, and then there was no connectivity where I was. So I apologize for this. Sandy Terte, I've been with Rocket Lab for 8 years, which is like a lifetime. I joined when we were less than 10. Now we are 1,300. So the company has grown a lot. I first joined as a VP of Vehicle Systems. So I started with a very cool job. I was in charge of developing the vehicle electron, the rocket electron. And then I was lucky enough to have an even cooler job. Thank you. I have very New Zealand colors today. Then I had a very cool, even cooler job, which is that I was launch director for the first 10 launches, which was very exciting. These days I'm based in Brisbane and I'm in charge of the business development team, which is also exciting because it's not just the commercial aspect, but it's really the strategy. Where do we go from there? It's important to have in mind that a lot of people see Rocket Lab as a launch company. We see ourselves as a space infrastructure company, and we just happen to have started with launch. A lot of companies start making satellites and then they think about launch. We did the other way around, because launch is always the hard bit. You know, it's good to have a satellite, but if it's not on orbit, it's not going to do anything for you. So first getting the launch availability, and then we started moving on the satellite front. Now we're developing 8 interplanetary missions, many for NASA. We're going to Mars, we're going to Venus, we're going to the moon in 2 months. So we're selling satellite components, we're developing satellites. Our goal is to develop applications really. And basically once you have launch, once you have satellites, well, I was going to say the sky is the limit, but we're above the sky. So I guess space is the limit.
Great, thank you, Sandy. And it's great to have you on. And don't worry about being late. We've been, working around your arrival, so no problem there. But it's fantastic, and it's great that we're spanning so many things here with the Kiwi bit, the Australia bit, and I believe you're French. Is that correct?
I'm Belgian, but
Belgian. Sorry,
it's close enough.
No, it's really exciting, and I believe over 100 launches have been with Rocket Lab that you've looked over. Who are you working with, and what can you tell us about your clients?
It's not quite 100 launches yet. It's more than 100 satellites, but it's been over 24 launches so far. Okay. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, it is very important for us to have a very diversified spectrum of clients. So we work with government a lot, but our clients, we have as many commercial launch as government launch. So when I say government, it's both defense and civil. So we do not make weapons. But we are part of some defense launch where they test technologies and things like this. So we've launched for DARPA, we launched for US Air Force. As I said, we had civilian launch, so we've launched for NASA. We had quite a few missions for NASA. And then, half of our launches are commercial. So in Japan, for example, we've launched Inspective. We've announced that we were launching Astroscale. We've launched ALE. So a lot of Japanese startups. We've launched also many Australian startups, Fleet, Meriota. So yeah, this is my job basically in this part of the world. We do a lot of work in the US, but this part of the world works pretty well for us as well. And I would say especially in Japan, because it's a very good match for us. We're very engineering in spirit. And I think Japan has a very high focus on quality and high focus on working together. We never want to be, this is one size fit all, you do it this way or don't do it. No, we really like to engage closely. If I can give you one last example, we're doing this Astroscale mission where we do some space cleaning. We're launching a satellite that is going to clean some other things in orbit and bring them back on Earth. So being able to collaborate was essential, because since we can deliver the satellite so close to the object, about 1 or 2 orders of magnitude better than what's available on the market, our clients can really maximize the chance to have enough propellant to do the final adjustment and really make it close to the object. So this hand in hand is very important for us.
Exactly, Sandy. And I think collaboration is the key. That's the theme of our meeting today. And it's interesting, the companies that you've just mentioned with Fleet and Myriota, fantastic South Australian companies. I'll put my South Australia hat on there.
Exactly.
And Catherine will be, yes, Catherine, you're in lot 14, aren't you? So I think you're right there with these fantastic space companies. And Ale and Astroscale, I think Kaho's colleague is formerly of Astroscale. Yes, if that's
Yeah,
right. Yep. And Ale is probably not similar, but not dissimilar company to Kaho's in, they're looking at space entertainment and I believe a little bit of cleaning up of space as well. Is that right, Sandy?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. And I don't know if I mentioned, but there's also Synspective, which we are launching in less than a week now, actually, on I believe on Tuesday. So yeah, exciting times.
Yeah, very exciting. And Kaho, just on getting your stuff to space, and I think this is probably something that a lot of people think about when you think of all of the launches and satellites and people doing more and more in space. What happens to the debris? Who deals with that?
yes, yeah. So this is really a big issue and big question. So from my view, space debris is really potential issues that we need to be careful of. I mean, all the space-related company needs to be careful about. And I also think that all space-related company needs to preserve, try to preserve and clean the space space out of space debris. So yeah, so that is what I'm thinking. And our about space entertainment, we are going to provide entertainment like art satellites in space. So we need to do some action to um, mm, so not increasing the space debris anymore. So our plan is to collaborate with companies such as Astroscale, who is doing space debris sweepers as their business, and try to preserve the space as much as possible.
Thank you. And on that as well, I think what we have to do, or what is up to the space sector, is a lot of education. We touched on this before with Catherine mentioning, the real importance of getting public opinion around. And I think this is important to show that, we're doing all of this stuff in space, but don't worry, we're packing up after ourselves before we come back down. So Sandy, yeah, Catherine mentioned before about public opinion and how that's really critical to the kind of funding, the space industry gets. But you're working a lot with the commercial sector, and Kaho, you'll be, you're targeting the commercial sector as well, and I believe, individual people. How do you work on getting like-minded people to invest in your businesses?
If you allow me, I'll quickly touch as well on the space debris because I think it is relevant, and then I'll move to your question. I think the space debris and they need to push for responsible use of space. It is possible. There's just not enough incentive right now. Actually, it's almost the contrary. If I put a rocket stage in there and I have some propellant, I could use that propellant to deorbit. But what happens if I announce that I'm going to do it, and then when I've released my satellite, I try to do this, it doesn't work. Then it's a mishap. So nobody forced me to do it. If I do it and want to be a good citizen and it's a mishap, then I have to do a whole investigation. So, it's not really an incentive to be clean. I think it is absolutely necessary. You hear sometimes about a graveyard orbit or parking orbit, a graveyard orbit, something like this. It sounds good. It sounds like it's gone. It's not gone. You put it in an orbit that is so high that it's literally going to be there forever. It just happened to be an orbit that is not popular. So I think that things need to change there. We go to low Earth orbit because we know that whatever happens there, it's going to go down within a short amount of time. And right now, we made the decision, a company decision, to stick to this 25 years rule. 25 years is still too long, but it is our own initiative to stick to this. And by the way, New Zealand is very active about this as well. New Zealand wants to see us sticking to this, and we're very happy to stick to it. There are some missions, most missions, like most of our satellites, we put them at 500, 600 kilometers, you will be under this 25 years rule. But if we put something at 1,000 kilometers, once we deliver the satellite, if we see that we don't have enough propellant left to bring our stage down so that it's going to comply, because we could not clean after ourselves. And I feel that it needs to become a necessity, because in a market where you are highly competitive, you choose out of this belief to basically limit yourself. And we would like to see every company maybe having a rating or something like this, but being forced to clean after yourself. By the way, everyone is on SpaceX back for putting so many satellites out there, but they're not too bad. They put the Starlink pretty low. So last time, for example, when they had this solar wind issue and the satellite failed, well, because they start low, they go down straight away. So they're not too bad. There are some companies out there that are much less clean than these people. So I think it has to become something that we have to do. And you were asking I think, who are the people that invest in us? Is that correct?
That's right.
Well, I think people that invest in us are people that share our belief. So this is one belief that we put forward, for example. But also the belief in space infrastructure, the belief in moving quickly, the belief in being very versatile and being able to do challenging missions. These are the kind of people that invest in us. We do not want to move slowly. We do not want to wait too long for making things happen. So at the same time, we try to deliver a very high quality process. Quality is key for us. But at the same time, we want to move fast as well. So this combination is key to us, and I think people invest in us because of our values.
Thank you. And Catherine, did you have your hand up a second ago?
I was just going to chime in and to agree with Sandy on actually quite a few points here, both as a South Australian government representative, but also as a global citizen. Sandy, you're absolutely right in terms of incentive and policy and regulation regarding space debris and what we're going to do about it. As you, I'm sure, are aware of, where you launch from on the Earth definitely impacts the rules and regulations on what you are responsible for your space debris. I know the UN is working towards finding this global agreement on how we're going to navigate space, but I tend to laugh, say we can't even agree how we're going to pick up debris in the ocean. So to agree on how we're going to navigate space is a very interesting point, but I know the Australian Space Agency is definitely leading the way to make an agreement. I think having deorbiting of satellites especially is incredibly important, but there's also definitely room to make use of the materials that are, especially in LEO, for example, so to reuse and recycle. And we have Neumann Space based out of South Australia here in Lot 14, looking at ways to sort of cannibalize and recycle what's already in orbit to make use of the materials. But again, Sandy, it is about incentive. And this is where I do say public opinion can essentially play a role. So it's important to have public opinion to get government support, but the same for your stakeholders, your shareholders, and we all look at the same moon at the same night sky. We know how important corporate sustainability is now in terms of public opinion. And I think the same is going to matter for those who are doing not only launch, responsible for launch, but those organizations who are keeping items in orbit. You said yourself, Sandy, SpaceX got a lot of negative public opinion for people saying, oh, you're leaving or putting too much in there. Everybody's in this space race to get items into orbit. And I think if you have in your systemic policy, in your vision, a plan for what you plan to do with your space debris, with your space junk, as we like to call it, then you're going to drive investment because you're showing sustainability for the future and that forethought. Thanks, Sally.
Thanks, Catherine. And I think, you're dead right, particularly when we're looking at any company we're going to invest in or use their products or their services. That's what we look at. We look at their SDGs, their sustainability goals, and of course it doesn't matter if it's a space company or one here down on Earth. They're all the same. So yeah, and I think you're dead right. Public pressure will certainly change things, and we'd love to know who these people are who are the worst offenders, but we won't name and shame. But we hope they're none of our circle, I'm sure. And Kaho, I'd love to know who is investing in you. And just on this, Kaho is, she graduated from Tokyo University, worked for Mitsubishi Corporation, I believe, and then after a few short years, maybe 1 or 2 years, has founded her own company. She's 24 years old, which is just remarkable in itself. But as a young woman in space with these fantastic ideas, you're going to have some pretty big backers with the same kind of thinking as you.
Yeah, so I founded this company last year, and of course I don't have money first, and I needed to have investors. So now I have really strong angel investors, several angel investors who are mostly Japanese, but now we are focusing on next fundraising from venture capitals now. And yes, so as you shared, I didn't have like space related experience before I found this company. And to realize this vision, create entertainment in space, it's really hard. And like nobody realized before. So I thought I needed to have difficult CXO like Yasu, who is now Chief Business Officer of my company, and he has more than 8 years experience in space and in other fields for modern and also in other fields, and try to have good connections and good people and who have the same vision, the totally same vision, which is entertainment in space, is why I'm now starting my business and keep being forward to. And so, not only me can realize this business. So I need more partners, I need more people, and this is the important thing of my company.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people will look at you as a young woman in Japan establishing your own space company in a field which, frankly, in Japan is really male dominated. Every space, even startup that you see is pretty much a spin-off from Tokyo University, and there's a page full of men their photographs, and I know it's quite different for Catherine and Sandy, though. I'm sure I know Catherine at Lot 14 is surrounded by a lot of women, but in Japan it's a really male dominated field. So I think for a lot of people you really are someone that they can look up to. And as Catherine talked about before, the educational aspect, seeing young women like you, working in the field that you're working and, carrying on with your vision is really fantastic. And Catherine, I know that you talked before about gaming and space, and this is something that's new to me as well. But I have a 7-year-old who wants to be a gamer, and so I'd rather get him into space, but that's okay. So, Catherine, I'd really like to. I think we'd all like to hear a little bit more about, what you recently studied on this and how it relates to the space sector.
Absolutely, Sally, absolutely. But before jumping in, I'm going to reflect back on what Kaho said and what you said. Absolutely the importance of collaboration. This space ecosystem is one that it is absolutely growing, but we need to rely on one another, not only for connections, for collaboration, but also like things access to launch and manufacture. And this is a little spiel for South Australia, but in December 2021, so just passed, we actually announced the first Australian space manufacturing park and hub. And that's when we have 4 different organizations, so like Fleet, like Aloda, coming together and actually being able to manufacture and then bounce those ideas off one another. And that's really, again, the premise of the ecosystem here with the space agency located so closely is having those conversations, having those chats, working with one another and supporting each other. And Kaho, I definitely think we've got room for some more female entrepreneurs down this way, but there's always room to partner across nations, between Australia, between New Zealand, between Japan, in fact, all the Asia Pacific. But I think with our co-location, it's an absolutely pinnacle opportunity for all of us to work together to really grow this ecosystem into something sustainable, right? Working together to grow that sustainability. And in that vein, I'd love to answer your question, Sally, about some recent work done out of the International Space University. So it's a university based in Strasbourg who focuses on developing future space leaders. And their premise is interdisciplinary, intercultural, and intercultural, and international collaboration and work and education. And recent work was done to talk about the gamification of articles relating to space. So it's something like if you have a fully simulated or a digital twin of a rocket and giving that experience to users in the form of a game. So, you're actually in the rocket, you're enjoying the engineering aspect. There's lots of physics-based puzzle games now, but the opportunity, Sally, to take that to the next level and really engage, and to sort of not trick people into learning, but to just stimulate that imagination and get it bubbling. But it's also to show that space in and of itself, the ecosystem, isn't strictly technical. And Kaho alluded to you alluded to this when you spoke about your art satellite. The ecosystem actually does involve the arts, involves media, really comms, the whole multidisciplinary aspect of it. So with the work that has come out of the International Space University, it's looking at getting public support, but public engagement through this gaming process. But it also shows that space really is open and welcome to everyone. And you can, have your son be a gamer, have him study arts and programming and design. And then, maybe he is designing and building a rocket or doing a full lunar outpost. That's what the study was based on. How would you get this simulated lunar outpost and have people feel like they're living on the moon for a period of time. And that's part of that full circle of we build our pipeline and we really sustain and grow the ecosystem.
Fantastic, Catherine. That would be my dream if my little kid turned out to be someone who could do that. But it is really exciting, and I think today's theme is about collaboration, and we've touched on how Catherine is at Lot 14 in South Australia, and just a little bit on that. Lot 14 is smack bang in the middle of Adelaide, and it really is like a startup hub. It's got the Australian Space Agency, Mission Control. There's a new Adelaide STEM high school. There'll be a new Indigenous First Nations art gallery. It's going to be, a really fantastic STEAM ecosystem, I think. And I think the difficulty is showing that Australia and New Zealand, while we might be really, really small in the whole space sector, and while our budgets are tiny compared to mammoth budgets of NASA, for example, how collaborating together can bring our countries up to the level of Japan and the US, and it all starts with collaborations between Rocket Lab and Space Entertainment and Rocket Lab and the companies that are in Lot 14 with Catherine.
If I can say something there, I absolutely agree. The only way to get your people trained is by doing. It doesn't really matter. The government has been scratching their head for a long time on how they can help the space industry. And the best way, in my opinion, is to pick a mission, or a few missions. It doesn't matter really what you pick. This rover is a great one, but hardware needs to be built. Things need to be delivered. It doesn't help to think about it for years and years and years. You just need to learn by doing. So I think this is a good way where the government can help.
Yeah, that's right. And we need people in government with vision too, to say, yeah, let's do it. We can't sit down and watch everyone else do it. We've got to actually do it ourselves. That's right. So I know we've got a number of people who are watching this, and we've allocated a little bit of time, but I have a feeling that we're going to require a little bit more time, because there will be questions from the audience, I'm sure. So I'm going to open us up now and here we go. I've already got some in here now. Kira or Sandy, I like your share. That's what that reference was. Yeah. Tim Chow, who is one of the co-chairs of the TIA committee, Tech Innovation, Education and Research, he has a question here. Tim, would you like to answer your question in real life? Ask your question in real life.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool listening. So thank you everybody for sharing all of it, because it's super exciting. One of the questions that popped up for me, because as TIA, we're covering both Japan, New Zealand, Australia. And one of the things that I'm curious to know about is, what are the governments doing to support you all? And I know, Catherine, you're on that side already in that sense, but there's other things you could be saying, well, we want more of, for example, potentially there. What are they doing to support your businesses in this commercial space? Because it is moving quickly, and in certain countries we're seeing a lot of government push to try and move this really fast. It's like the playground at the moment. And that support that you are getting at the moment, what are you getting? So there's another question that popped into my mind, because Sandy, you're in Brisbane at the moment. I was going to ask, what's pulled you to Brisbane in a way? Is that because Boeing is based there? Is there a reason that you've been pulled up into Brisbane? I was just curious about that. That was a separate question though.
Sure, I can answer that. So the question for Brisbane is very simple. I used to live in Brisbane before going to work for Rocket Lab in 2013. And I came back for family reason, but also because we wanted to. We knew that we should have a presence in Australia, and also from a business development point of view, I'm more central for the whole Asian time zone. So that's a perfect location. But otherwise, no particular reason why Brisbane compared to other cities. But your question about how the government can help is a good one. So, and it takes a bit of political courage, because the best way to help is not necessarily, if you allow me, the most sexy way to help for a politician. I do not believe at all that opening a control room is a good way to go about it. You know, when we launch Electron, our control room can be made out of a container and a few computers. But for a politician, showing the public, hey, here is a control room, this is something that public understand and can picture. The best way to help is through regulation that makes sense, that are practical, and creating missions, ambitious missions where it is difficult but feasible. This is the best way to help. You know, right now in Australia, a lot of people want to open a launch range. Again, it's great for the public because the public understand directly, oh, I know what a launch range is. I'll see a rocket taking off. Without speaking about us, if you ask Gilmore if they want a launch range, they're going to say no. You know, we have our own launch range. It's important to have this flexibility. We have our own control room. We don't want someone to bring computers with softwares that we have to fight with, rather than come with our own. So yeah, it's easy to sell for a politician. Is it the best thing? Probably not. Missions that are challenging and that are interesting, and that means that the government needs to educate themselves about this. You know, understand what mission to bring. But for me, this is the best way to help. I'm sorry, I'm running out of battery.
Thanks, Sandy.
If you don't mind, I'll chime in and just to agree with you a bit on the regulation bit. We all know government and we all know that there's different red tape, but yes, if we want to support our ecosystems to grow, there's certain things we need. I think launch, I'll disagree with you slightly. I think launch is critically important, not just for public outreach and understanding, but actually, you know, yes, launch can be a bit sexy, but actually launch, as you said, if you can build all the satellites in the world, but if you can't get them up, what are you going to do? So to have your own sovereign launch is incredibly important, but to have the ease of regulation, I agree, and good policy, and maybe less red tape. And where I do think government can, oh, please go ahead. I can see you run and jump in.
Sorry, I think I have been inaccurate the way I spoke. I don't mean that launch is not important. I mean launch range.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Range, because it's not like a gas station where any rocket can be brought, but launch is important. Absolutely agree.
Brilliant. Yes, perfect on the same. We are absolutely on the same page. Same page there, Sandy. And I think where government can help, agree with missions. As you know, South Australia is having a Buccaneer. So we're trying to get that flight heritage. Flight heritage is important, but to do things like what Sally's doing. And that's, in my mind, to support this international dialogue and collaboration. Because again, it's a global ecosystem. And you need that B2B, you need that connection. And that's where I think government has a key role to play to help put these jigsaw puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, exactly right, Catherine. And that's one thing I hope to be doing in my role in selling South Australia as the best place in the world. The space community in the world. Sandy, I think you should consider looking down south. But in all seriousness, it really is a collaboration of Japan, Australia, and New Zealand that will lift us up, literally. And looking at how we can get, we don't need a mission control center really, but it is important to show the public, this is what we're doing, because without, as we've, talked about many times, without public support, people just think space, they don't know about space. It's Star Trek. It's something perhaps a bit scary, or only really wealthy people can access. But I think, Kaho, and maybe you can speak to this too, that it's going to be available for, not just the head of Tesla and Amazon, but more regular people too.
Yes, I want to prove that in my life. Yes.
And we want to know, where are you planning on putting the hotels?
Yeah, so we are discussing right now, and all the information is going to be released soon.
Fantastic. And Imamura-san, who is from the New Zealand Embassy and who very kindly introduced Sandy and to join our event today. You have a question, Imamura-san. Imamura-san, I'll just say as well, is also one of the co-chairs of this committee. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandy. Sorry, yeah. I have a particular question to Sandy. New Zealand Rocket Lab as New Zealand originated company business. And my question is, H3, Japanese JAXA extended the schedule of launching this H3. And I think the aim of H3 is something launching the rocket with something lower cost, which is something similar to what Rocket Lab is doing. So Sandy, do you have any message for Japan as a specialist for launch lower cost rocket?
So is your question about basically a message for how to develop a low cost launch vehicle? Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I think the most important lesson that we've learned, and really what characterizes all this, what we call new space companies, is to be absolutely vertically integrated, to do everything yourself. And when we started in 2013, we did not want to do everything yourself because it's a gigantic amount of work, and we had nobody in the company that had done this before. So we often talk to other company and could you please make a cryogenic pump for me? Could you make a fairing for me? We talked to all these companies that we thought were specialists. And we realized that the world didn't want to move at the pace where we wanted to move. So we had basically to have a double program. And at the same time as we were asking companies to collaborate with us, we were trying to do it also internally. And we always ended up doing it ourselves, simply because, again, we wanted short timelines, but also we were terrible as a client. We were changing direction all the time because that's what you have to do, right? You have to keep iterating and keep. So we have developed this quickly by doing a lot of testing, by being very versatile, by being able to very quickly change. The Electron you see now was version 8. We've designed 8 rockets. And same thing for the engine. I remember a period where we were testing 3 design every day. Every day we were 3D printing 3 design and testing them every day. So speed is very important, and that's one thing that characterizes SpaceX as well, right? Speed. Speed, being very versatile and doing everything yourself, which is a bit against the spirit of collaboration. But collaboration can be good once you've reached that ability. Now we love collaborating, but at that time where you need to have a launch vehicle on the pad, being able to have all this competence inside the company was tremendously important. And allows you to control your costs.
Key point. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Imamura-san. And just before we close off, I'd like to ask the three of you, where do you think the potential is for space, and what do you think we should keep an eye on? What's a standout company or idea that you think will, be developed before we know it, or something that you think that regular civilians on Earth like us, not involved with space at all, should really know about?
I'm happy to start if you want, because I'm running out of battery and
Go ahead.
like
Sorry,
one
Sandy.
of my things has already disappeared, so I may not make it to the end. I think with all this constellation of small satellite in low Earth orbit, this brings a big change. If you do this for weather, if you do this for communication, that brings communication everywhere. That brings basically a lot of data, and that requires a lot of launch availability, driving price down. So this constellation is making a big change to the way we use space.
Terrific, thank you. And if you have to go, please go. But it's been absolutely fantastic having you. Thank you very much, Sandy.
Thank you. I'll stay as long as I can.
Great, thank you. And Catherine?
I think Sandy hit the nail on the head in terms of what we're looking to cultivate and grow, and is really changing. It's sort of this new space ecosystem. So we're talking about small, many meshed, the linking of many small satellites and what they can provide in terms of data and growth and information and numbers. Oh, I think we've lost Sandy. And I think what else is going to be a real game. Oh, you're back, Sandy. Oh, excellent. I was like, the other thing that might be a real game changer for the space ecosystem is the influence of quantum and the computing in there, and that's how we're going to digest and grow further data. I know as I've flogged on and on about, but South Australia as an ecosystem really is one that has this collaboration, that has this growth, small, many meshed, satellite manufacturing park, quantum, but also across the board. And the other thing I think that will be surprising is the growth of space medicine and the relation back on Earth. So as we age, as we degrade muscles, as cancers go, exposure to radiation. Kaho, you mentioned the amount of civilians going up into space. The exposure to radiation is going to be a challenge that affects us here on Earth. And I think we'll be surprised at how outer space affects the health and lives, both emotionally and physically here back on Earth.
Wow. Okay. And Kaho, last words from you.
Yeah, thank you. So I believe that all parts of space ecosystem itself are really changing with high speed. And so there are more companies who can build satellites. That's why we Space Entertainment can do this business collaborating with those companies. So the ecosystems are changing, and the possibilities of space industry are changing. And now more civilians go to space, and it's going to be increasing more and more each year. And let's say when we go to space, now most of people who are going to space is just for work, but when we go to space just for having fun, we need to have fun with good sleep and with good atmosphere and with good culture. So the space industry are changing, and also what we can do and what we can make is changing. So that's why I love space industry. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kaho. That's why we all love the space industry. We can watch you do all of this fantastic stuff. So thank you. Thanks so much to our three guests today. It's just been absolutely wonderful having you on and learning about what you do. And we will make sure to put you all together after this, because I can see some fantastic collaborations in the works. So thank you for your time. And Imamura-san, I'll move over to you for last words.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sally. I'd like to thank all the very diversified panelists, Kathleen, Kaho, and Sandy, for sharing your very interesting stories with us. The theme of aerospace is something that we, the TIA committee, have always wanted to do, and our members have found it interesting. And we are proud to have achieved this today. And especially, I'd like to thank Sally, Chair of ANZCCJ, for your fascinating facilitation of this webinar today. And TIA committee, working with ANZCCJ Executive Director and Secretariat, will continue to develop similar webinars in the field of technology, innovation, education, and research, which looks both focused and diverse, but also of interest to everyone. Thank you all for your continued support, and thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Imamura-san. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.